It's a great honor and privilege to join you here today and this distinguished panel. I also want to pay tribute to the Mayor of London, coming from New York City. When and if there is a mayor of New York, white or black, who has the guts to say and do what your mayor has the guts to say and do, you'll know that America is different. And bear in mind, when he does this, it does not come free. He doesn't say anything about it, but he takes a lot of heat, I've titled my discussion here today, Resist Anglo-Saxon Imperial Culture. Today, the African diaspora faces a geopolitical landscape which is utterly different from the one we faced 12 years ago. The disintegration of the former Soviet Union in 1991 removed the restraint on Western imperialism and neocolonialism because it left the United States as the sole remaining superpower. However, it also eliminated America's ability to use the myth of the, quote, communist menace, unquote, to conceal its own imperial ambitions. In these new circumstances, the Bush administration, with its doctrine of preemptive imperial military conquest under the guise of the war against terror, has become the main enemy of progressive humankind. Our challenge is to unite the African diaspora for a struggle against the Anglo-Saxon fundamentalist Protestant crusade against the entire Third World, launched by the current administrations of the United States and the United Kingdom. For African Americans, the primary task is to expose for the whole world to see the racist and imperialist nature of the Bush administration. We must compel America's mass media to acknowledge our opposition to Bush as a united ethnic group. After all, in the 2000 election, 94% of us voted against him. The mistake we made is that we didn't make it 99%. Now we have the power to make white America look at the nakedness of her self-appointed emperor, a scraggly Texas shrub parading
Could you say that again?
Okay.
I just want to get that for the record.
You like that line, okay. A scraggly Texas shrub parading, no, wait, I'm not finished yet. Parading as if it were a displaced California redwood tree. But first, we must put our own house in order. The civil rights movement ended when the Civil Rights Act of 1965 was enacted by Congress and signed by President Johnson. Unfortunately, the fight for equal opportunity was headed off by the war on poverty and by affirmative action. These policies were substitutes for the federal imposition of equal opportunity through mandatory, federally enforced minimum quotas. The link between civil rights and equal opportunity was broken. Thus, the struggle for equal opportunity has not even begun in the United States. Furthermore, today's civil rights struggle has become the struggle for human rights, and there is an enormous difference between the two. Civil rights cover only political rights. Human rights cover economic and cultural rights, as well as political rights. The latter-day Martin Luther King Jr. of 1967-1968 embodied the transition from the civil rights movement to the struggle for human rights and equal opportunity. That's why he was assassinated and why his true legacy has been drowned in a sea of iconography and nostalgia. A yardstick against which to measure today's black leadership can be found in his words spoken more than 3 decades ago. The Black Revolution is more than a struggle for the rights of Negroes. It reveals systemic flaws and suggests that the radical reconstruction of society itself is the real issue. We're dealing with the problem of the gulf between the haves and the have-nots. Amen. The individualistic approach has always been attractive to a significant segment of the black upper and middle classes. Today, it represents a powerful trend in concert with a modern version of Booker T. Washington's accommodationism. Its expression is manifested in the black middle class's obsession with role models based on wealth and success, but devoid of both personal accountability and responsibility to their community. The problem of the color line has become inseparably intertwined with the problem of the class line. What flows from this undeniable fact of life is the urgent necessity for a fundamental change in the goals and leadership of Black America. The civil rights struggle has been replaced by the human rights struggle, which firmly links economic and social rights to political rights. And unless that connection is made, the civil rights so-called leadership that we have now will continue to look backwards with nostalgia instead of leading forwards to progress. Our goal as a people should be full integration of 100% of African Americans into American society as an equal ethnic group with a distinct culture. We have already rejected the idea of assimilation of the black upper and middle classes into white society at the expense of the elimination of African American culture. We must develop a new leadership which has the courage to assert this new goal and to call for replacement, nothing less than the replacement of a leadership that's not responsive to the needs of its constituency. Past accomplishments should be given their due, but are no guarantee of continued leadership based on past accomplishments. Not enough. This applies not only, I believe, to African Americans, but to the African diaspora as a whole and to Africa itself. Unity between whom, for what, is an issue, not just unity. The revered former president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, understands all this and more. While he said that South Africa would support any action against Iraq that was supported by the United Nations, he left no doubt about his contempt for President Bush, and I quote, "One power with a president who has no foresight and cannot think properly is now wanting to plunge the world into a Holocaust. Why are Bush and Blair undermining the United Nations? Is it because the Secretary General of the United Nations is a black man? They never did that when Secretary Generals were white. The U.S. doesn't care for human beings. A country which callously dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki has no moral authority to police the world. It is possible that Mandela spoke out in this dramatic way to call attention to the need for many African leaders, including current South African President Thabo Mbeki, to rethink their priorities and to improve drastically their service to the majority of their people. In any case, the subsequent deafening silence of most African leaders, including Mbeki, on the subject of Bush's imperial quest, speaks volumes. Mandela has also sent a clear message concerning the AIDS pandemic, which is devastating South Africa, along with most of the African continent. Speaking in London's Greenpoint Stadium just 4 days ago at a rally against AIDS, which bore the designation 46664, the number assigned to him during his 18 years as a prisoner, Mandela said, "Millions of people today infected with AIDS are just that, a number. They too are serving a prison sentence for life. That is why, for the first time, I am allowing my prison number to brand this campaign." Mandela's use of the word infected refutes President Mbeki's denial that the HIV virus exists. Mandela's statements and actions contrast dramatically with Mbeki's arrogantly heartless public comment that he had no personal knowledge of anyone who had contracted the AIDS virus or had died of AIDS. If President Thabo Mbeki has no shame, then we should have no hesitation to criticize him publicly, wherever he goes.
Controversial vote.
The time is long past when leaders should not be held accountable to the people. Today, as we face terror and economic injustice at home and war abroad, President John F. Kennedy's 1961 inaugural address offers us wise counsel and contrasts dramatically with the drivel coming from today's White House. First, he reminds us of the main principle of economic justice. Quote, "If a free society cannot help the many who are poor, it cannot save the few who are rich." Then he lays out the basis for an enlightened foreign policy. Let the word go forth that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans, proud of our ancient heritage. To that World Assembly of Sovereign States, the United Nations, our last best hope, we renew our pledge to prevent it from becoming merely a forum, to strengthen its shield of the new and the weak, and to enlarge the area in which its writ may run. Let us formulate serious and precise proposals for the inspection and control of arms, and bring the absolute power to destroy other nations under the absolute control of all nations. Now the trumpet summons us again, not as a call to bear arms, not as a call to battle, but a call to struggle against the common enemies of man, tyranny, poverty, disease, and war itself. And now you wonder why this first Irish Catholic president of the United States was assassinated. Amazing. You know who? The same kind of people who are leading the Anglo-Saxon crusade now. They're still there. Now is the time for us to unite worldwide in a concerted struggle against the new Anglo-Saxon axis. We must oppose the US-British occupation of Iraq and Afghanistan and demand the United Nations control over the stabilization and reconstruction of those long-suffering nations. We should fight to dismantle the World Trade Organization and the International Monetary Fund. We should compel an end to the presence of all US and UK military bases on foreign soil. African Americans have a special responsibility to defeat the North American Free Trade Association, which is neither free nor an association. We must learn to curb the obscene power of intertwined international finance capital and corporate conglomerates who are openly stealing the people of the world blind. We must chip away at their clay feet, bring them to their knees, regulate them, and ultimately nationalize their assets. As for the fiction of a political third way, a right-wing U.S. president with dreams of an American first realm has removed the ground from under the so-called centrists. The struggle worldwide is now a political war between progressives and reactionaries until one side or the other achieves total victory. The military analogy is people's war, like World War II and the U.S. Civil War. We know which side we are on. Let's act like it. Thank you.
Paul Robeson, Jr. A warm, warm round of applause, please. Come on, you can do better than that. Let's raise this roof. It's gonna get a lot hotter before he comes down today.